Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first event of this year. We'd like to welcome our industrious panelists from the container and terminal and port industry. I will be your moderator during this session, and we will, from a housekeeping standpoint, we would like to keep all questions towards the end of the event unless they're really burning and have a tremendous desire. As I say, my name is Richard Butcher. I will be your moderator for this event. And the overall scope of this is to look at how has COVID-19 impacted the world of ports and the maritime sector in general during this transition that the world has never really witnessed before and seen. And we've seen lots of changes, the slowdown in world trade, economic impacts. A lot of manufacturing sites in China have slowed down or even closed. So the impact to the overall global trade has been very hard hitting. And during this time, we've seen lots of companies start to move towards virtual working environments where many companies have had to switch away from being in a conventional bricks and mortar environment of their offices and move towards a more virtual world, which is pushing the desire within terminal and port operators to look, can we operate outside the normal constraints of our port and terminal environment? And with the changes that are occurring, we see technology being a very key factor in this driving force. And the panelists we have today will hopefully enlighten you and share some of their visions about the modern technology that the industry is using, how are we adopting these areas, and what will the future be like as we come out of post-COVID-19. And I think that the industry has really been shaken. We've gone through a lot of things. Over my 35 years in this industry, I've seen many changes. I've seen many events, but nothing quite like COVID-19. And this has really impacted the way business is being transformed. So as we come out, we're looking at innovation, we're looking at technology, and thinking outside of a normal container box, if you like to say, in this context. So my panelists today come from the world of ports and terminals and technology. And with further ado, I'd be very like to introduce the panelists to you. Firstly, I have Mr. Derek Maggs. Derek, I've known for over 30 odd years. Derek is ex-P&O. He started his career over 35 years ago with the P&O shipping industry, the liner side. He moved into the technology fields during this time, and for the last 25 years, he's been based out in Singapore. So we welcome Derek from Singapore. Derek will be very much in front of us talking about AI and machine learning. Derek's held very senior positions within the SAP group and the IBM Global Services. And as I say, Derek's based in Singapore now. He's been out in Asia for 25 years, and we're very pleased to have him on this panel. I also like to welcome Mr. Pradeep Luthra. Pradeep is based in Dubai. His background is also extensive with over 30 years of the maritime port sector. He started in the oil and gas industry, where he cut his teeth in this market space. He then moved into the ports. He felt that there was a burning desire to put his skills to the port and terminal sectors. And he's really cut his teeth in this sector, working for the Dubai Ports Group for over 15 years, where he spearheaded many complex IT and operational projects. He implemented many systems across DP World's global operations. And since leaving DP World earlier this year, Pradeep set up his own consulting arm, which is called Sabre Technologies. And we're very pleased to have Pradeep on our panelists today.
So much.
And focusing on AI and technology changes within the global port sector and global groups such as DP World. We have Mr. Rajesh Kumar, the co-founder of CMB Tech. Rajesh is based in Bangalore, India. Rajesh brings 20 years of experience. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's already successfully set up 2 IT-based companies and moved those on, sold them. In the last 10 years, he and his partner have focused very much on how is AI and machine learning adopted to the container terminal and ICD markets, focusing purely on the Indian markets to start with. He's carved out a very good market sector with 25% of the Indian container markets, with the flow of traffic going through India. His products manage and support those transactions. And Rajesh will be talking very much on the transformation of container terminals and the way AI can be used and utilized to work on workforce planning and optimization of assets. And lastly, we have Mr. John Dunlop. John's the Director of Business Development for Solon Ports. Solon Ports is one of the leading innovators in Turkey, developing terminal operating software. And we're very pleased to have John on board. John's experience, he's ex-RAF. He came out of the RAF, and when he left his wings behind, he went into the port sector and aligned himself with a very dedicated team of experts out of Turkey that have been very innovative at the cutting edge of terminal operating software. So John will be touching on how these changes of what new things terminal operating software should be, and touching on the modular approaches. So those are our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I've spoken enough for the time being. I'll jump in, but I would like to hand the floor over to Derek Maggs in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That's a very good introduction to myself and the other panelists. So thank you for joining today. It's a great pleasure to be invited to be part of this. I've been passionate about ports and terminals and shipping for so many years. It's when Richard says it's 30 years since he's known me, that's a serious worry. But obviously the grey head, my wig is still on. Okay, but I just want to take you through some of the issues that perhaps COVID-19 can be viewed as an opportunity to start to tackle some of the issues as an accelerator for some of the. I've had the benefit, I think, of visiting and working with perhaps more than 30 ports and terminals around the world. I think probably nearer 50. But just to be on the conservative side, most of those in the last 20 odd years have been in Asia, but not exclusively. And originally I was working out of London, so the European market and a few of the American ports and terminals were also on the agenda. But my focus is really in everything from Dubai eastwards, if you like, in the last 20 years. So if there are things which you're seeing which are different elsewhere, please let me know. I'm always keen to learn, and one thing I've found over the 30 years is in this game you never stop learning. Somebody tries something new and it works. Somebody tries something new, it doesn't work, and we can all learn from both cases. But today I will stay a little light on the technology side because I know that we have both Pradeep and Rajesh to come to talk about that, and of course John will then follow up at the end. But what I do want to do is focus on perhaps some of the issues that we're facing in this. What is everyone on the call knows that we have a complex landscape within our ports. We have, I've put it down as these 5 areas, which is what I've called the terminals with the broader set of port stakeholders. These things on the face of it haven't changed very much, but they are changing dramatically now as we see automation increasing. And so one thing I've seen is over the years is that struggle to implement large-scale change, especially in brownfield sites where they perhaps have a legacy of key cranes or legacy of some legacy operating systems running the terminal, and the investment and the skills required to make those changes is often quite daunting and perhaps difficult to justify. But as I've talked to ports around the world and the port groups especially, what I've found is that the expectation of value in the business cases that I've often helped to prepare, to be honest, there's been a falling short in realizing the value. And the falling short has happened both on the operational efficiency side, and typically there's 10 to 20% of the expected operational efficiency that's been left on the table, and also in the expected productivity improvements, which have either not achieved any productivity improvements or even been negative in some cases, which is incredibly disappointing. So what I've done is I've spent, I've looked back over my career and the investigations I've had with many of these operators, and here I reinforce what was said by I believe McKinsey a couple of years ago about some of the key reasons why we don't drive the value that we really need to drive, and perhaps that this COVID opportunity, which has seen a somewhat de-stocking of the supply chains and changing of supply chain, is an opportunity for us, instead of thinking about just building growing capacity, thinking about how we can invest to improve scalability from a human dimension as we move forward. So the first of the barriers for realizing value, and there are three of these things I want to cover very quickly. The first is that when a huge investment is made in equipment, the skills, the capability, and the change management of what's going on within the port and with the stakeholders of the port is absolutely vital. And I've seen this done everything from quite well to quite badly, with everything, even violence being one of the results of bad change management. So, having seen that in a number of cases, I recognize that this is perhaps one of the key areas. And so, what do I mean by skills investment and change management? I think people who've been doing something one way for a lot of years, it takes a while to retrain. It can take more than a year or two, and so bringing in people with skills, working closely with the vendors, which I'll talk about later, is key to that. But I think there's no excuse and no reason not to manage the change internally, especially when it comes to the impact on people. So the usual change steps of why we're doing it, why it's important, creating the quick wins, communicating those quick wins, and so on, are all very important and are key to realizing value, so you don't get resistance to change there. The second, as I move on to the second area, one of the things that has been obvious for many of us in this industry, if not everybody, is that we'd love to be able to make better decisions about things that are happening in the port, but we just don't have the data. Or if we do have the data may be of questionable quality, or it arrives too late for us to do something meaningful about it. So by the time we've parked up and put it in one spot, 30 seconds later we found out we shouldn't have put it there. It may already be too late. The equipment, moving machine, material handling, has gone off to do something else, and that's going to cause us inefficiency. And the same with information. What was short shipped at the previous port? Do we handle that data? But there's much more to this than that, of course, which is, how do we make smarter decisions if data between the maintenance department is not being shared with the operations, and the people on the operations side not sharing data with the truckers, and then you've got a whole line of truckers queuing outside and no amount of buying them McDonald's burgers is going to keep them happy. And I've seen that very case obviously actually happen, and in some places it might work, but it's not a scalable answer to the question, especially if you're short of space for the truckers. And in some parts of especially Indonesia and so on, there isn't the space really, and you see these long lines of people just wasting a huge amount of human manpower, time and effort just waiting to pick up their trucks and so on. So data quality and sharing is perhaps the second area, and then the third area is perhaps the biggest bugbear for ports, which is how do we handle exceptions, and the exceptions come in thick and fast. You know, what was expected to happen versus what really happened is not always the case, and it's those exceptions that cause it. And so whether these are changes requested by customers, or customs say a little late, we'd like to inspect this container now, we've just got some information, I'd like to pull this one aside. These types of things, how do we react quickly to those things so that we can manage them efficiently and not double handle containers or triple handle containers, especially in the port side? Okay, these are real barriers to entry, and I think we'll hear especially later on from Rajesh and Pradeep about some of the ways in which you'll hear the technology can help in these areas. But I think there's, that my overall summary there is that these things give us an opportunity now to pause and think a little bit about this, because of the COVID situation, the reducing of the supply chains, and somewhat of a modal shift for many of the items to air. And when that comes back, and it surely will come back through the sea channels over the coming months, I think we're going to be we will have a chance to implement new sets of priorities and plans what we're doing. But how would I define that as if I was to summarize a set of recommended steps? I would say that simplifying processes before putting in new equipment is absolutely mandatory. Trying to use old processes with new equipment and new processes where you're looking perhaps just at the key crane side. You've got to look end to end now for the processes, otherwise you won't get the optimization for the customer or the optimization for any of the other parties in the supply chain. I'd say you need to implement strong change management and governance for that change. And thirdly, I would say that if you want to drive value from an investment project, have somebody focused on the value piece, and don't let them, when there's compromise to be made, make sure that value person is there, part of the compromise decision. Because it may seem like a small thing you're giving up, but you may be giving up a large portion of the value as a result of that. Fourth thing is, I mentioned a little bit earlier on, is work very closely with the tech providers to innovate. I've seen too often that there's been an us and them relationship between the port and the technology providers, and that's created some tension rather than a willingness to share. The extra value comes from sharing knowledge, from saying, hey, we would really like if your product did this, so that that can be part of the product roadmap, but also getting advantage of, they did this in this other port, why don't you try doing it this way in yours, and learning from each other as we go forward. We can all learn as we go forward here. There's so much more to come, especially with things like machine learning taking on extra tasks, with AI helping to drive as we implement new technologies such as platooning and all these types of things. And then finally, I would say focusing on integrating your external data and sharing your data with other people. I mean, then there's some great stuff going on, as you're all aware of TradeLens and what's happening with TradeLens, the IBM blockchain ecosystem. I'll call it an ecosystem because the idea, of course, is that it's building value through apps that can make use of the data to which people are allowed based on their enrolled profiles. And it's great to see that that's now being adopted by two of the largest port terminals groups in the world, the Dubai Ports World as well as Indonesia and its Pelindo ports, and the infrastructure, the inland infrastructure for Indonesia in terms of their supply chain. So I think there's some great things going on, and that's not small already. It's I think there's more or less 1 billion documents that are already being processed through that, and at 120 items per document, trackable events per document. We're already looking at a very substantial chance for reducing the friction that's happening at the port. So, if I can summarize very briefly, I think this post-COVID time that we'll be entering very shortly will give us a great opportunity to rethink how we look at things like automation, how we focus on the people element of this. And I think that there's been a lot of good focus on training and education with regards to safety, but we'll never be there whilst there are people in the ports. But here we have an opportunity, I think, to perhaps do some of these 5 things that are put on the screen. So with that, thank you, Richard. I hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Derek. I think you raised some very valid and salient points in this discussion. I think educating and implementing new business re-engineering processes are very much key, as is new technology. Technology on its own, it can drive change, but without management and drive from management to make those changes and to implement better efficiencies, things can't happen on an independent basis. And I think this leads nicely into Pradeep's message, which will be basically looking at how do the big groups like the DP Worlds of the world consider these changes and how are they tackling things. So I think over to Pradeep in Dubai. Thank you very much, Derek. Really appreciate your input. Pradeep. You're on, I think, Pradeep, you're on mute.
Okay, is that good?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Pradeep.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Derek. That was quite insightful. I haven't prepared, slides or anything like that, because this is meant to be a discussion forum of people from the industry, and it's kind of like an elephant. Everybody is in the industry, but holding a different part. And it's nice to get into a room together, even if it's a digital room, and try to understand what the shape of this animal is actually like. And of course, I've had the good fortune of being involved with Maersk before, and with DP World, and with a lot of offshore oil and gas work before. So I have my own few insights to share. And of course, I've been out of DP World now for about a year, so I'm not here to actually give any of DP World strategies or anything away as such. But definitely the obvious things are that with a company that's evolved the way it has, and that's not to say that's the only company that's evolved in that manner, aggressive expansion and trying to bring the trade story together has been the strength of DP World. One of the key challenges of DP World is you operate across so many different terrains, so one size solution doesn't fit all. First of all, that remains always the truth. You have places, for example, you have places in the world where you don't have proper connectivity. You have places in the world where you have excellent connectivity. So you can't throw a solution that will fit everywhere at one time and give you the same kind of or improved kind of results. That's in its place. I think our theme today is actually to talk about more coming out of COVID, what we should be thinking collectively about. See, we have a situation, logistics was running throughout the lockdowns, of course. We were all able to buy food, maybe not exactly what we wanted in every which case by way of brand or source. But the logistics people, just like the people on the medical front line, were working hard to make sure supplies of essential goods and medicines and the like were coming through. And I think that was in itself, I hope that there's a lot of lessons learned there that will come out and be shared with us, because when you work in constrained capacities, you learn things, and we really need to get that all those learnings out and bring them out so that we can collectively look at them. So I'd personally be interested to anybody who was running their logistics full speed ahead during the lockdown to please share whatever challenges and things like that that they went through and how did they work around those. I think it would be really, really, very interesting. Coming to the fact that we've had a lot of downtime and we need to make up for it. You see, even when you have so much of automation and now you have the excitement of 5G coming and a lot of sensor technology and IoT prevalent in the world, scarcely 20% of the operators were really adopting this stuff wholeheartedly. And that's an obvious business decision. You adopt something if it makes money for you, or that doesn't mean increase in revenue, but it could even mean an increase in your operating expenses. So creating a value for you is the reason why you would do something. And definitely in the supply chain, the way things were, despite all the trade lenses and all the other, let's say, unifying factors that are applying in the world today, in aviation and maritime, a very big difference in drawdown and use of technology. Very, very big difference. So at the end of the day, now what I present to you is that while only 20% of the companies were really keen on adopting a wide range of automation, I believe now that the new way of working where we have to have more people away from the actual operational areas, now there is no choice but to have more automation. And since there will be more people applying this automation, hopefully the costs overall of this kind of technology will come down. So I'm hoping to see a revolution in the adoption process of automation. Sitting down in one place, let's talk about some of the remote operations that can be done in a terminal. You can have your crane operator sitting far away in a room, operating 4 cranes with a single console, very much like a video game. And it could be as effective as sitting there on top of the crane with the bird's eye view of the vessel under you. And we've done this already. This has already been done. And, we have smarter cranes, we have smarter equipment. It's now time to bring the fact that we need to make up for our lost time as a driver towards the adoption of technology and create the work environment that the future needs from our side, so that people can work safer and be out of harm's way. We had a couple of questions coming into us. Of course, container ports, container shipping is quite advanced in its adoption of automation. There's a lot of tools, a lot of software, a lot of trace and track capabilities on your cargo. You have extreme efficiencies. You have quad lift containers, and you now have trains that can move 1500 TU, 2000 TU from China to the UK on a weekly basis. So in terms of container, I think things have really evolved well. What has gone slow is the dry bulk and the general cargo area too. And there have been sporadic pockets of technology improvements in these areas, but not the way in which it has happened with containers. And there's many reasons for that. There are some technical challenges, and the innovation of those spaces is still a great opportunity for us. We do have some level of automation in terms of the kind of cranes that handle the grabbers and the buckets and things in the ore and in the coal industries. We've seen a lot of adoption of IoT and things like that to ensure the supply chain measurements and KPIs are working through properly. I was involved in a project for Gabon, which was moving ore from mines about 700 kilometers away from Libreville. And the kind of adoption of new technologies there was quite amazing. The operators of the facility, Olam, they really wanted to leverage a lot of technology there. So we had IoT in the locomotives, we had IoT in the wagons, we had IoT on the barges and on most of the trucks and equipment. And we created a great degree of visualization and information transparency across all the functions of the working group there. And that project was done with the collaboration of Larsen and Toubro Infotech. So it was a great project, and I was honored to be a small part of that project. But it really opened my eyes coming out of DP World and going into a place which was handling ore. It had a lot of learnings for somebody like me, and I saw a few pointers in there that could well apply even back in the container sector, which I shared with some of my clients already. The other thing is when you bring, as we agreed, that savings can come from reducing your operation costs. So we have a large opportunity for applying automation, AI, machine learning, and sensor technology in maintaining the equipment associated with the dry bulk handling. And predictive maintenance is far better than preventive maintenance. You definitely will save money if you're not needlessly maintaining a piece of equipment. And you're definitely going to save money if you come to know that something is going amiss in a piece of equipment, even though it's not up in time yet for its next service. So if you can get in there earlier and change that component. So all of these things can save you money. All of these things can make the difference in coming back, jumping out of the COVID gloom and coming back into higher productivity, and also directly increasing the bottom line. The old ways of let's do it if it makes us money really has to be looked at in the boardroom, and they have to see new ways of seeing value, kind of like the balance scorecard. There has to be some new scorecards established, which are not just the balance sheet and not simply the way things have used to be in the past. So having said that, I'll be coming in again for some of the Q&A, but I'll pass it back to Richard. And I do hope that we have some more interchange. Again, reminder to all those who were running operations during COVID lockdown, let's please form a forum, some of your learnings across, and let's look at that together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you for sharing your insight on aspects of container terminals and the dry bulk market, which one of the questions was raised, and that hopefully answered the question. This really moves us on to the next part of the session, which is looking at where is terminal operating software going and what is the future. Today's terminals are not short of technology. There is more technology within a terminal, and I have been around the world many times, visited many container terminals around the world and seen many facilities implemented different systems. They're not always integrated and they're not always functioning as they should. And the question lies, what are the terminals looking for moving forward in the next 5 years? This question really poses, moves the sort of the questions over in the session over to Rajesh Kumar in India, in Bangalore, where he will sort of now discuss what missing components are the current solutions within a terminal requirements, and where is the future for the next 5 years? So, Rajesh, over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard, and thanks for this introduction. I think Derek and Pradeep has already set the scene, in terms of bird's eye view of what this industry needs, where it is going towards, and what is the impact of COVID in current situation, and how people should look forward to in adopting technology to reduce manpower. Derek talked about data quality and sharing of data between different stakeholders and things like that. I would like to go a little deep down on those. And Richard, you see, it's such a paradoxical situation. Like on one side, people like to use AI and ML in their processes, for that matter adopt new technologies, but at the same time the legacy system that they use to manage everything does not allow them to do so. And you cannot blame those legacy systems either, which have grown over like a decade time to have such technologies inbuilt within them. They work for what they are meant to do. Over a period of time, this system has become so complex and entwined that it has become even more difficult to implement such modern technologies in their core application. So what industries should, and I'm sure are looking for, is something more modular application in nature that can slot into their existing system to uplift their productivity and efficiency. This can be like third-party application just focusing upon solving a particular problem, like say a task allocation, or say birthing, or container allocation, or even ETA prediction, or turnaround time prediction, and things like that. So this can be different modular application that port can adopt. Since these standalone application would be fresh in their approach and would be built on some of the latest platforms, they can incorporate a lot of these recently mature technologies like AI and machine learning. And these modular applications have to follow certain kind of standard integration process inbuilt upon them, so that they can exchange data, information, or analysis with the existing system. Let me share my screen. So I believe that if you divide the activity broadly in port operation, these are the areas where improvement can be done. First is like Derek also pointed on this, that improving the data source is the first step of any analysis there, and thereafter optimization. So unless and until you have like right data for you to analyze, the things ahead of that can look little gloomy in nature. Hence, I'm referring to both kind of data, static data, which is historical in nature, upon which the analysis can be run and model can be prepared to act upon the current data in most optimized way, as well as the real-time data like expected time of arrival of vehicles and containers, or a real-time prediction on what particular activities will take, and of course the location of cranes and containers. So seeing that these are all real-time data, so we need to have a combination of both, is like historical data as well as real-time data. In fact, a couple of days back, we were discussing a solution with a company who operates upon the area where ship comes on the berthing side, from the vessel part. And they would give the exact location with 1 centimeter accuracy of the vessel berthing exactly on the wharf side, where exactly it berthed. And that can enable port, to place their container in advance and align them as per the vessel location, and that could save immense amount of time and money and things like that. So this is a snapshot like how data can actually, if you have integration point and you are having a right data set from third party or external data source, how they can improve a lot of your internal activities. Then comes the optimization operation, which is another layer that that comes over the enriched data layer. This is also dependent upon both historical data analysis and trained data model based on those analysis along with real-time data, like sequencing of tasks and based on real-time location of cranes, containers and ITV location along with the storage plan is something which can revolutionize by combination of IoT, AI and machine learning applications. And then there are also some processes which are, I feel, quite redundant at many places. People just, they want to have those steps to reconcile things, and many a time they want to have those steps because there are no foolproof and secure way to eliminate those steps, and they do not want to get into some kind of mismanagement of activity, so they need to have those steps. But with various automation things, processes, if people adopt those steps can be eliminated and things can be more optimized and save times. These are few data collection modules that I see, are very important for the industry, and we all know that there is a big disconnect between the haulage and the ports planning system at most of the places. I think an ETA vehicle either coming to pick up the container or drop the container in case of export can enhance the planning system in much efficient manner. The major impact can be seen in housekeeping moves of export container as well as shifting the import containers. It also can have a major impact on export getting cutoff time, which is I believe is 24 hours at this point of time, but that can be reduced, if you have the real-time information of incoming container in all the scenarios, and you can plan a lot of things, and you can plan a lot of things in a short period of time as well. And now processing data at the gate. Once the vehicle arrives at the gate, how well you capture the data in terms of identification as well as damage and other parameters, and based on that, if there are some other activity that has to be initiated inside the port area, how well you can execute, you can initiate those activities and execute them. So that's also very important node where data need to be captured rightly. And similarly is the case with real-time location of all the containers, ITVs, cranes, where they are operating, how far they are from their task to their actual location. Sequencing of container pick and drop in between the stack and sequencing containers on the ITV towards the wharf side based on the storage plan. Everything can be optimized if we have all this real-time information. And these are various on-ground activity that can be optimized using modern technology stack, like how best you can guide incoming vehicle into the ongoing activities inside the port, and how you can make them seamless. When the container or vehicle arrives at the gate, it has to, there are various activities which are already going on inside the port. So how well you make them seamlessly accommodate with your ongoing task is something which is very important and can be done using the real-time data, and also the turnaround time prediction that you can have for various other activities that are ongoing. Similarly, tasks for cranes and ITVs can be managed using their real-time location, turnaround time predictions, and various activities based on the train model that run on the historical data. All these activities can happen in perfect coordination to increase the productivity and efficiency of port. And if you see, if we actually adopt AI and machine learning, this should be the heart of that should be the heart of your complete planning system, which captures data in real time, and which also have an analysis on the static data like list of containers, import containers or export containers, what the TOS has the the plan that is generated by the TOS in terms of which activity should happen in what manner. And then you have dynamic data also, like ETAs of different containers as well as real-time location. And then you have already your export containers plan, like based on vessels arrival time, based on the container storage plan. You run a engine on top of all this data to analyze how your tasks should be sequenced based on this data. Similarly, for import container, based on the importer's history, based on the type of cargo, there are certain type of cargo which are moved faster in the certain period of year, it moves slower in other time of year. If you have analysis on this data and you have the dwell time of container calculated, then based on that, while you moving this container, you know exactly where the container should go, and you can do a dynamic segregation between a long-standing container and a quick-moving container. And they are very important on long run. If you put this application for 6 months time on your apply this for 6 months period on your in your planning part, you will see a lot of improvement in terms of reducing the turnaround time or reducing your bottom line and things like that. So I would say actually AI has its implication at a lot of places, and it can be centrally applied at the core process of port, but it has its hooks fitted at different, different data set which are outside the port premise. And right now, actually ports should concentrate more upon how to get those hooks fixed on those data points, how to get that information captured. And once they are able to do that, there are a lot of things that can be made easy and that can be optimized in the original port operation activities. Yeah, so that's from my side, Richard.
Thank you very much, Rajesh. I think you really did highlight the fact that AI and machine learning are two very important elements which the industry have to adopt and have to move forward. When you look at the big ships coming alongside these days, the pressure on the terminal operators to turn these vessels is paramount. The service level agreements that they sign up, the carriers sign up with the terminals, are putting a lot more pressure. They want their schedules maintained and they want faster turn times. And all coupled with lower terminal handling rates. The carriers are like a double-edged sword. On one side they're good, and the other side they're not so good. They bring increased volumes, but with the increased volumes comes a lot of pressure because reduced terminal handling rates and greater volumes and tighter turn times. So the carriers really are exerting pressure. And so the terminal operators are now having to figure out what is our return on investment model? How do we achieve better utilization of our fixed and variable assets? And how do we get better optimization and better returns on lower THC rates? So if we can keep and maintain an equilibrium with our ROI model and achieve lower operating costs against the service level agreements, then that's the way the industry is going. And congestion levels are a key factor for all terminals. So having the efficiencies of AI and machine learning to streamline these processes, and as Derek and Pradeep quite rightly said, business re-engineering is key. And the adoption of robotics and automation is also very key. So this leads into John Dunlop in Turkey, who's been sitting there waiting in the wings. And John will highlight some of the things that his group are doing and some of the things that their customers are looking at from a terminal operating space. So over to you, John, in Turkey.
Thank you, Richard, for your introduction. And it's a bit of a two-edged sword coming last in these panels with such great panelists before you. And everything's been said. So, you know, I feel a bit like Liz Taylor's seventh husband. I know what to do, but will it satisfy now? So we'll see. I've got a few slides. I'll share screen and chat through those. Just let me get organized. Okay, can you see that now? No?
Not yet, John.
Oh, hold on a sec. You'd think I'd know what to do with technology, wouldn't you?
Here we go.
There we go. Okay. Time is money. It's always been with us. Time is money. Timeliness of operations and the way ports do things hasn't changed for thousands of years. And it has brought things forward for us, I think, in our thinking. We've always had a trend. And as a software house, the trend we've had to work to dictates what we will do in the future. And I think it's interesting that all the panelists so far have certainly been talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning. And so that's where we're heading. I just want to quickly go back, though, over how ports have run. I mean, this is obvious information for most people, but it is all about getting things done in timeliness. So the demand, we work to demands. Our software house, we're a terminal operating systems software house. Thankfully, now we've teamed up with CNB, who have all the extra bits that maybe we didn't focus on before, IoT and AI. And so we're very happy to be part of this new development. And it's all about information, generation and transfer and exchange, and the demand for timeliness of info and demand for security. You can see this simple graphic. It started with paper. There's more and more paper. You get overwhelmed with paper, so we go digital. Obvious way to go. And with that, sharing the information, there's collection of information, sharing of information is another problem that comes into security. So originally we were shouting demands. We were passing by paper, and even not that long ago, and there are still ports, small ports around the world, in Turkey, some of them, who are still using paper information transfer. Then, of course, we get on to the technology. That brings security issues. And so our focus is security. That's one of our main things we're working on, actually, as a software house, is timeliness of operations and security. And that gets worse as you work from home. There's the little guy working at home. We're all doing that. And mobile phones, we're all wanting to be on the mobile. That, again, is our focus, and keeping security as tight as possible. Expansion of info is inevitable. Ports are getting bigger, and not just getting bigger, they're adding different terminals. So we deal with container ports. Our software house is dealing with bulk and general cargo. So we've got to expand our system to take care of that, and not just in the port, but beyond. So we're talking about integration now, and we've always still got to increase the speed and the security. And these things are getting more and more. Obviously, the trend, again, is everything is increasing. Very few ports are reducing. That's our challenge as a software house. I've moved on to that a bit. That Internet of Things now is where CNB Tech are coming in to help us. So we're now our focus on new solutions is to take the information, share it as easily as possible with as many people as is necessary. G5 SAM, Generation 5 Smart Area Management System. this system now is on the mobile phone. Everything you want to do in the port is on your mobile. And the feedback from the ports that we're working with in Turkey and around is that the way to go is mobile. What's the advantages of mobile? You've got all the information in the port, all the transactions simultaneously are happening, and you've got it in your hand. And that we are still developing. We really want to get into the next subject here is where is all this going? So the trend then, we've seen the trend is information management and expansivity. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, neural networks here. Artificial intelligence, I think, is going to be the bigger player, and machine learning. I'm not sure that we will get the neural networks if we go into, let me go forward one, mind-machine interfaces, brain-machine interfaces. I think they're coming. It's already happening. It's been developed. Will we see that in the port? I'm not so sure. I think the artificial intelligence angle is where we're looking at. And again, we're following. We are working to the demands of the ports. And although we're trying to innovate as well, we still have to follow what the ports require. And I'm not sure, and Pradeep maybe, or Derek and Rajesh they know more about this. I don't pretend for 1 minute to be a complete technology expert on all of these subjects. Of course not. I'm thinking that the artificial intelligence will be the way to go rather than the mind-machine meld. I think it could be great to operate cranes from a safe distance. Again, security of the person, not just the security of the information. I think just enhancing virtual reality or augmented reality in particular, that's where we're focusing on in the future. We may or may not get to a mind-machine interface. Technology is here, there's testing, but will it be useful? And I think the main advantage of the artificial intelligence over the human brain is the speed at which transactions happen. And hopefully we will get quantum computers. There's another subject. Will it ever really happen? Or is it just science fiction? But so far, everything we've got to with our mobile phone applications, it was science fiction when I was a boy over 50 years ago. So science fiction comes true. We have to think as a software house about looking into the future. What can we think about offering? What are we able to offer? But mostly, what do the ports need? And I think these points, the panelists, thank you very much. You've brought out all these points, and you've probably opened that up for a good discussion, maybe not necessarily today, but in the future. We need to know, we need to work together, excuse me, we need to know exactly what you think you need in the ports. Where are you going? And we will come and follow you. And that's really all I wanted to say. I'll give it back to Richard. We can maybe sum up at the end.
Thank you very much, John.
How do I stop?
I think some of the things you touched on are very valid and salient. I think from a modular, I think terminal operators that have multiple systems operating within their facilities, I think there's a few key areas. One is definite integration, the requirement for integration, bringing these systems together so that common data can be shared in a secure manner, as you quite rightly said. I think artificial intelligence will provide a smarter way of handling machines and resources across the facility. And I think the adoption of machine learning, once these AI engines kick in, I think machine learning will continually evolve and adapt, and they will learn the processes of every transaction. So if you've got the yard planners, for example, looking at the vessels, inbound vessels, these guys work with the standard terminal operating systems, the Navises of this world and the Jades and you name it, they're all there, the RBSs. But these guys look at the plan, the static plan, and the plans are very static in nature. And where AI can come in is take that static yard plan and provide a much more consistent or on the fly workflow, which provides information more accurately to the workforce to process moves, to make the best moves, the optimal moves. And I think this is key, because this is where it's going. And I also believe that with technology already in place, with the mindset, there will be a need for modular systems to slot in to those missing areas within a terminal operating system. So some terminal operating systems miss out on some components, and I think the modular approach is where the industry should start to look. Better integration, modularization, and better traffic flows, a lot more security, because we've seen in the last 12 months, we've seen 2 major data breaches. I think the last one was with our Swiss friends in Geneva, who had quite an embarrassing situation. And then Big Blue themselves, a year before, suffered a major data breach. So cybersecurity is also an area which all terminals and ports must adhere to. And especially if more people are going to be working from a non-virtual base, so they're not going to be working within the terminal, the aspects of cybersecurity are paramount. So to summarize, we'd like to open the discussions up to the attendees, and would like to have any questions that you may have. Please buzz in. We're here to answer. So we're here for another 5 minutes, and please, let's have some questions from the audience. Do I see any questions?
Yeah, I think Bright Ryan, he raised his hand. I'm just...
Okay. Hello, Bright.
Hi, Richard.
A long time no speak.
Yeah, okay. Just a question, when I see that AI from, the presentation from Rajesh, it is what happening across the globe, but I want to understand that this product, like the CNB, whatever the product which you developed with the AI, does it work with web services based, or it has a separate product to plug in with any kind of TOS, or you need to customize something on the TOS side?
So actually, Brad, good that you asked that. Like any standard application, we have our integration, API-based integration with the terminal operating side, and we do integrate and exchange information. So it's a two-way service. So, but we do not foresee anything getting, programmed or changed on the TOS side, because, we believe that whichever TOS we have, interacted with, they have a standard API protocol that are exposed, and we integrate through that.
Okay. And the second part is, this product, because, most of the time in a terminal, either is a predictive maintenance on the, asset management side, or the workforce management on the labor planning or the scheduling of the manpower resources.
Right.
Does it work with the AI capabilities to integrate, the engineering side of it is basically the technical services who do the maintenance of it, and the other side, the workforce scheduling, and the third side is my core operations side. Is there integration capabilities to incorporate all the data to come up with a proper, on-the-fly solutions using the AI engine?
Right. So, see, I want to be upfront on that we do not have that predictive maintenance part, and that is something that is not inbuilt. But we integrate with any terminals predictive maintenance if they have, whether it's a third-party application or other asset management application that they might have. So we take data from them. We do a historical analysis on the container location, in terms of the dwell time of the container, also the performance of crane in terms of per hour, how much move they had been doing historically, what are their breakdown. But how that breakdown is predicted, that is something that we are not doing. But we take that data, like how frequent they break down, right? And suppose a crane which is generally whose breakdown cycle is say for 4 month or 5 month time, and we know already they are almost like in a 4 month period, and if there is some crucial task for which a crane has to be allocated, probably will not allocate that crane. So we take care of that in real time.
Well, okay, but is it a cloud-based or on-premises setup?
So it's a on-premise setup, but it has a cloud interface also, because what we have understood over a period of time that there are many container ports in the tier 2, mainly tier 2, tier 3 ports where internet connectivity many a time is not that good. And they are also located in a far-reach region. So what we have done, like we deploy one on-site application, so in-premise installation, but we have a cloud connectivity also, so that all the upgrades and updates can be seamlessly done through cloud, and we have a copy of that sitting on the cloud side.
Well, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bright. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to raise a question? No, they're all shy.
Ramesh has raised a question about the use of digital twins in managing and maintaining assets, which is kind of broad question for digital twins, but obviously in the Industry 4.0. Perhaps I've written a little answer there in my perspective, but it'd be good to hear from John, Pradeep, and Rajesh that technology to visualize and see and manage digital.
I'll just come in here just to let you know that one of the biggest uses of your data is that if you have the right resolution of the data and the right method of capturing and storing it, you can use this data for a lot of what-if analysis and simulation. You can actually play back a sequence of activity. Digital twinning is actually a capability that allows you to reach that point so that you have actually a replication of whatever is happening, but you can use that replication in order to study and review and create models from that. So definitely, Ramesh, you are in the right track. Phraseology and terms between the different sectors of the industry may be a little different, but you have basically called a rose by another name. We call it digital simulation and review process, and of course digital twinning is very much in that space.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to ask I'd like to thank the panel for their tremendous input and their time. I'd like to thank the audience for participating in this event. We'd love to have any questions you might have after this session. Please address them to us. You have our email addresses. We will share a copy of this video presentation to all participants, and we will also list this on LinkedIn and other social media. And this will be the first of a few sessions. We will be touching on other areas, moving into the hinterland and intermodal and logistics sectors, which also have a major impact on the port sectors. So please watch this space. If you've enjoyed the session, let us know. If you've got any feedback, let us know. And we will share this with you, this presentation and the slides. So thank you very much to everybody for your time and input. Thank you, panel. And Richard Butcher, this is signing off.
Okay.